Subnautica 2 released to early access to a fervor of acclaim, and I've played it, and I agree that the game is amazing, especially for an early access build. The creature design, the story, the building, the rocks, all of which immerse you into this beautiful ocean paradise. Kinda. But it is still an early build, and therefore it's obviously not perfect. And in my opinion, there's a handful of things specifically that I'd like to see added or changed by release. So, I made a short list to make my suggestions more palatable for the YouTube algorithm. And we'll start with what is, in my opinion, by far the most important and necessary change in the game. Where the hell is this crab's rebreather? First, context. There's a short narrative in the game that tells of a group of individuals that go insane after succumbing to the alien tree's urges. Don't worry about why this is happening. It's not important right now. What is important is that in one of the voice logs for the group members, a woman describes her groupmate taking off his rebreather and putting it on a dead crab.
Nitrogen narcosis, babbling about roots, trees, all swimming towards the bottom of the cave. Genzo gave his oxygen mask to a dead crab.
A chilling image because it implies that the man essentially offed himself. And so I was excited to see the actual results of this gruesome story. I swam down a tunnel, examining the face of every single dead crab I found. But there was not a single rebreather on any of them. And then, finally, at the very end of the tunnel, I found a black box where that man's last words were recorded.
You need some air. Try my mask on.
The black box was, of course, right next to a dead crab. Except, there's no rebreather on this crab! How can you guys leave rebreathers all over the map, but here, right in this cave, when rebreathers are vital to the narrative, there isn't any rebreather at all? You could say, well, it ended up in the black box like you do when you die, but it wasn't in his inventory when he died. He gave it to the crab. I even searched all around the crab, below him, next to him, above him, and I didn't find any rebreather whatsoever. How can you get our hopes up for a rebreather wearing crab and then just not carry through? Please, please, please put a rebreather on this dead crab. I'm losing my mind here. Play NOA Messages after exiting chat box. NOA is a pretty interesting stand-in to the first Subnautica's radio, but Messages have got to keep playing after exiting his chat window.
Wander Waymo. A young...
It feels strange that every other voice log can be listened to while exploring, building, or searching for resources, but Noah's words can't. Perhaps it was made like this because sometimes there's a follow-up interaction option for Noah, but I think the most recent message can still be played out after the text box is closed, regardless of whether there are selectable text options available or not. Pause oxygen, food, and water meter when talking to Noah. Usually, Noah is just in our base, but on occasion, a Noah is underwater, or an interaction can just take a really, really long time. And during those times, the oxygen, food, and water meter continue to deplete, requiring the player to stop in the middle of an interaction to eat or drink. And then they have to start the whole interaction all over again. So yeah, a meter pause for oxygen, food, and water would be much appreciated. More clown crabs. Holy shit, these crabs are the cutest thing I've ever fucking seen. The way they walk around on their little legs and turn towards you when you approach them, and the sound they make. Oh my god, the sound they make. We need a way to interact with these crabs. Feeding, grabbing, putting them in an aquarium. They're so good. Also, please fix the way they float sideways when they extend their legs. What the hell is this angle? Add screenshots and pictures. Bring back the in-game PDA screenshots. It was so nice when wandering the beautifully crafted underwater world to take an in-game screenshot and then decorate the wall of your base with it. It was probably one of the best ways to add variety and originality to Subnautica 1 base building. Please bring it back. More flora that interacts with the player and other fauna. Whether it provides a benefit or a hindrance, more flora the player can interact with or that interacts with the player would be great. Maybe some plants that provide fruit that give different kind of benefits? Perhaps even a cooking mechanic where different foods can provide different non-stackable buffs? Plants that attack the player or cause harm in other ways rather than just poisons? Another nice addition would be flora that lives symbiotically with other fauna, much like the jelly shrooms in Subnautica 1. Perhaps even make a creature that's a cross between a flora and a fauna. Less one-hit kills. please get rid of the one-hit kills by the Collector, and maybe even the Shiver Leviathans. One-hit kills in video games are frustrating. Sure, the expectation is that a one-hit kill is a punishment for the player's mistake. However, it usually feels frustrating or unfair and forces the player to bypass the obstacle or enemy entirely. In my opinion, the Reaper Leviathan was the best example of a well-done, terrifying, and powerful enemy as an obstacle. They would be placed right near areas that the player would need to navigate to, and then they would have a one-hit kill, but only if the player's health was under a certain threshold. I think the Collector should be more like this, where its first attack only takes out a large chunk of health unless the player's health is under a certain threshold. Then, it can do its one-hit kill animation. More crabs and squids! Seems clear that crabs, octopi, and squids are a big part of Subnautica 2. It would be great to see more types of crabs and squids. Crabs that swim around like fish, octopus that blend into their surroundings, large passive squids that roam around the early game areas. Making more fauna like these would make the transition into the mid-game feel more natural, as there are evolutionarily similar creatures. Much like is done with the Flora and the twin stingray. Is that Sidoray? Not stingray? Okay. Also, you can never have too many crabs. Make biomes more specific. Before I get into this point, I just want to say the guy who did all the rocks for these biomes, you know, the rock guy.
Rocks!
Yeah, that guy. He did an absolutely amazing job. Look at these. Holy shit. Keep up the good work. But in my opinion, Subnautica 2 biomes do have a problem. Here's a question. How many different specific biomes can you remember from Subnautica 2? Sure, you can probably remember some specific fauna types and maybe even some flora, but there wasn't really any specific biomes. Just a long stream of areas where the flora and fauna would slowly change types. And sure, this might be a more realistic take on natural environments, but this is a video game. Sometimes, for the sake of fun, cool, or intriguing video games, aspects of realism need to be discarded. What I would suggest is picking a flora or some physical structure in an environment and building the whole biome around it. Give the biome a color that complements the chosen flora or structure, and then add some fauna that specifically interacts with or relies on those flora or structures in the environment. Think of the kelp forest, a biome built around the large sea kelp. Small fish roam around it because it's easy to hide in the forest of kelp. But large predators, like stalkers, also live there, as the cover of the kelp allows them to hunt those small fish. Each of the fauna and flora build off each other, creating a cycle of life that makes it feel like a living biome. And these kelp forests aren't only in one place, but they pop up in multiple different areas all across the seafloor, making them feel more natural and real. Then you have the jelly shroom cave, and just wow. Fluorescent pink mushrooms illuminate the whole cave, giving it a pink tint. Within those mushrooms live crab snakes, and the two flora and fauna live together symbiotically. This whole biome really only rests on these two creatures, and finding the cave in the grassy plains and heading down, seeing those mushrooms and those crab snakes swimming around, is still one of the most memorable moments in Subnautica 1, as it can be found early on in the game, and it's so breathtakingly different than any other biome the player would have encountered until then, in both looks and the size of the hostile fauna. Now, this method of creating biomes is of course a balancing act, as if you're not careful, your flora or structure could completely take over the biome, making it significantly less interesting, much like the Fabricator Caverns in Below Zero. It's just crystals. Less hostile fauna. The hostility of hostile faunas should be turned down. Right now, when you enter the general vicinity of a hostile fauna, they rush to attack you. And because hostile fauna are so fast in Subnautica 2, I assume they need to be because of all the biomods we can obtain, they are almost guaranteed to hit the player. This apparent hyperfixation on the player makes the fauna feel less like a living part of the ecosystem and more like an obstacle that exists only to hinder the player. To make the hostile fauna feel more like a part of Subnautica 2's ecosystem, I think we should look to Subnautica 1's hostile fauna. Specifically, the sand shark. The sand shark burrows around in the sand, only to emerge to attack unsuspecting prey. While wandering around the grassy plateaus, the player will witness the sand shark searching for food by burrowing and hunting nearby fish. If the player happens to get too close, then they'll find themselves in the fish's place, fleeing from a hungry sand shark. This is perfect because the sand shark doesn't feel like an obstacle. Its hostilities just feel like a part of the environment that only turn on the player if they step out of line. And in fact, most of the fauna act like this in Subnautica 1. They wander about, sometimes being aggressive to things nearby, and sometimes that thing just happens to be the player. This stark difference in aggressiveness also makes fauna like the Warper, the Reaper, and the Ghost Leviathan significantly more terrifying because they are much more likely to attack the player. I would love to see more hostile fauna like this in Subnautica 2. More ways to defend yourself. The players should have more ways to defend themselves. But wait, it's not what you think. I'm not talking about knives or stasis rifles or gravity guns. It's probably good that those are gone. I'm talking about making more methods to divert the attention of hostile faunas away from the player. And I think particularly distracting methods that can be found out and about in the world would be especially good. Additionally, adding these methods could add to the flavor of the fauna, giving them a more specific personality. For example, let's take a look at Subnautica 1's Stalker. There are multiple methods for the player to avoid damage from the Stalker. You can throw a fish at it, sating its hunger and causing it to swim away. Or you could throw a metal salvage at them, and they'll grab it and bring it back to their nest, neglecting you completely. And additionally, this quirky personality trait where the stalkers go around collecting metal salvage is fantastic. Both these damage mitigation methods can be easily found out in the world, and one of which, the metal salvage, is especially specific to the stalker itself. It's defensive methods like these that I'd like to see added to Subnautica 2. Perhaps if certain flora are fed to certain hostile fauna, they could cause the fauna to get sick. Or maybe there's a flora that works like a smoke bomb, and if thrown, it can reduce the aggro range of nearby hostile fauna. Or maybe certain hostile fauna are attracted to a specific type of mineral, say quartz because it's shiny, and those fauna will tend to chase the quartz over chasing the player. Additions like this to Subnautica 2 would really develop the character of the existing hostile fauna and make it really feel like they're a part of the environment they're in. Okay, now these are most of the changes that I'd be interested in seeing come to fruition. But of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. There's plenty of other things that I'd like to see added, like giving fish health, and stopping voice lines from interrupting other voice lines, and actually planting plants instead of, like, building plants with the habitat builder. Seriously, what is this? Why are we building a plant? And yeah, that's it for now. Now, I'm not sure whether Unknown Worlds people will even see this, as I'm a very small channel. I mean, I have less subscribers than the guy that made Seamoths every day until Subnautica 2 came out. Great finale, by the way.
Nice.
But yeah, please don't take this video the wrong way. I loved playing Subnautica 2, and I think the developers have done an incredible job bringing this game to life, especially considering all the nonsense that was going on. Wow. I would even bet that most of the things I mentioned here are already on the radar for the developers. I just want to see Subnautica 2 become the best game it can possibly be. And I think that can only happen when us community members voice our honest opinions to the developers. Oh, look, that's exactly what the developers said. Convenient. So let's all keep working together to make this another great addition to the Subnautica story. What do you think of my suggestions? Do you agree? Or do you think they're just terrible? Or maybe you think your suggestions are just better than mine? If so, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear all of them. Alright, okay, well, thank you all for watching. I'd also like to thank my YouTube channel members and patrons who helped fund this video. So thank you, everyone. Now it's time for some music. Let's go. Guys, I think I have a problem. I made a couple, as you can see. Yeah, I mean, they do look good, right? All right. Yeah, I gotta stop. Sorry, everyone.